I had no intention of working in the diabetes space, but it's funny how someone getting diagnosed with diabetes also was the impetus for me trying on a Dexcom, which was the impetus for me wanting to apply to the company because I was looking for a job. Here's the story of how I got my job at Dexcom. So it starts when I was just a kid, and back when I was diabetic as a kid, everyone used to ask me, "Oh, Jared, you want to go to medical school? Well, do you want to be a diabetes doctor? Do you want to be an endocrinologist?" And I go, "Fuck no. I think about diabetes way too much. Why the heck would I be a diabetes doctor?" But as a little Jewish kid from a Jewish community, I go, "Oh, like there's only a couple ways to like get wealthy, and it was either through being a lawyer or in business or being a doctor." And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go to school for biomedical engineering and pre-med because I want to be a doctor because that's how I think I can become wealthy. So I remember I went to school for biomedical engineering, and I'll never forget the first week I was at Ohio State. I was at a guy I knew from high school, and I ran into him. I bumped into him, and I saw him at a party. And he comes up to me. He goes, "Oh, like, hey, good to see you again. Like, what's your major?" And I go, "I'm pre-biomedical engineering. I have to apply to it, and I'm also pre-med." And he just laughs in my face and goes, "Let me know once you change your major." And I go, "What? I'm gonna prove this guy wrong. F this guy. I'm gonna prove him wrong." So I basically was like, "I'm gonna get into biomedical engineering school. I'm gonna be pre-med because I want to prove this guy wrong. Like this guy's he doesn't know. Like I'm going to get this. I'm going to get this." And I remember I like got into biomedical engineering after my first year. I got accepted because you have to get accepted at Ohio State, and I was pre-med like a lot of the kids in the major. And I remember after my second year, I was working in a biochemistry lab, and I was pipetting in a biochemistry lab around a bunch of guys who were also trying to get into medical school or they were going to be doing this for their PhD. And I just go, this is freaking miserable. I don't want to do this, nor do I want to like be an indentured servant the rest of my life as a doctor. I was like, I'm only doing this because I thought this was the way I could help people and also get wealthy, like I thought growing up. Because again, I'm a little kid from Cleveland, Ohio, thinking there's not many options other than like going to med school or becoming a lawyer. And how naive was I? So I dropped the pre-med and I said, okay, what can I do to help people instead? And I said, hey, I'm going to make medical devices. So I got an entrepreneurship minor at Ohio State, and I decided I'm going to stay at Ohio State for a entrepreneurship minor. And it turns out nobody wanted to hire a biomedical engineer out of college. We are a trick of all trades, master of none. And they'd rather hire someone with a mechanical engineering or a software engineering or an electrical engineering degree. And I go, shit. So I go, well, no one wants to hire me. So what do I do? So I stayed for a master's in mechanical engineering. And I ended up getting that degree so I could get a job making medical devices. So someone would be like, oh, he's a mechanical engineer. He knows how to, make devices and, knows mechanics. And ironically, it didn't help me much at getting more experience on how to build devices. You know what actually gives you experience? Doing the damn thing as you're learning. And I ended up getting my first job at a product design consultancy in Cincinnati, Ohio, where they basically specialize in consumer goods, manufacturing products that are like smaller components, consumer products, very similar to consumer goods, could be the same thing, and medical devices. And I ended up working there, taking a big pay cut because I was like, this is going to set me up to work at a medical device company. This is great. And I remember in my first year, I was like, okay, I'm learning a ton. This is great. I'm going to come back like New Year's Day. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to rock and roll. Like on year 2, we're about to hit the ground rolling. It was 1 year in, and they bring me into the office and they go, we got to let you go. And I almost cried getting laid off from my first job within 11 months of being there. And I was like, I feel so worthless. I can't believe I got let go from my first job. And I remember while I was like in between trying to figure out what I want to do next, I'm like, okay, I got to start applying to companies. So I'm just applying to any company I can think of. I get a call from them, and they're like, and I'm on a ski trip. I'm on a ski trip in Tahoe with one of my friends, and I get a call from them. They go, "Hey, how's it going?" And I go, "Good. Why are you calling me?" And they go, "Well, we have more work than we thought." They initially laid me off because they're like, "Oh, we have less work than we expected, so we got to let you go." So it was pretty ironic that they were like, "Oh, actually, we have way more work than we thought now after a month." And I'm like, "Oh, that's frustrating." So they brought me back as a contract worker, and I was like, they asked me, they're like, "Hey, do you want to come back as a contract worker?" And I go, "Fuck you. Yes." Yes, I will come back as a contract worker. And I remember I was looking for new companies to like apply to that I thought were interesting. And if we rewind for a second, 3 months prior to getting let go, the girl I was dating at the time, my girlfriend of like 2 years, got diagnosed while we were dating with type 1 diabetes, while I already had type 1 diabetes. And I don't think I'm contagious, but that was pretty funny that happened. And when she got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, they put her on a continuous glucose monitor. They gave her the new Dexcom G6. And for 2 years prior, my doctors were trying to convince me. They're like, "Jared, you need to try a continuous glucose monitor. This is going to make your blood sugar control way better." And I go, "Look, I am a 25-year-old guy who wants to look good with his shirt off. I will not be putting another thing on my stomach." And they're like, "Give it a go." I gave it a go. I was like, "Yep, I'm still not doing this." And then, so they've wanted me to be on one of these for a while, and I was like, I'm good enough as is. My blood sugar was in great control, relatively speaking. And then she got diagnosed with diabetes, and I go, "Okay, this is interesting." And I saw the continuous trends that she was able to see on her phone, and I go, "Holy shit, okay, this is cool." So I went to my doctor and I was like, "Hey, look, this is really cool. I do want to try this, but I just don't want to have this on my stomach all the time." And she goes, "You know, you can put it anywhere you want." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Well, it's only indicated for use on your stomach because that's where it's FDA approved for. But a lot of people put it wherever they want." And I'm like, "What do you mean put it wherever they want?" She's like, "You can put it on the back of your arm. You can put it on the side of your butt." And I go, "Oh, side of my butt. Well, I wear pants. So it's going to be hidden most of the time." So I go, "This is a great spot to hide it." So I said, "Fine, I'll give it a go." And I gave it a go. And once I put it on, I just go, "Okay, yeah, this is pretty freaking incredible." And I was like, "Okay, I get it. These are sick. These are amazing." Fast forward back to when I was like having to look for a new job. And I was like, "Oh, I may as well put in an application to this company, Dexcom, because they make really cool mechanical applicators." So I threw in an application. I wrote a nice little cover resume, like, "Oh yeah, I'm type 1 diabetic. I believe in the mission," which at that point I was like, "This is pretty cool. Maybe I am interested in this." But again, I never, ever really intended on working in the diabetes space. I was like, I think about diabetes too much in my life. There's no reason why I need to do this 24/7. I don't want to think about it 24/7. And then I got an interview. I was like, "Ooh, crazy." And so I decided, how can I impress them in the interview? So I decided to take apart the mechanical applicators that I already had, because I'm like, I use these all the time. And I had to like also take apart their electrical transmitters and be like, "Look, I took it apart. I'm really interested to see how it works." And I remember I put it in a folder. I printed out all these displays of me like tearing it down and pointing out all these things. So like, "Can you tell us how you think it works?" in the interview. And I go, "Not really." But I milked the hell out of it, whether it was genuine, but also the fact that like, I'm like, "Look, yeah, I've got type 1 diabetes. Like at the end of the day, like I really am going to be using any product that, like, if the product doesn't work, it affects me directly. If the product does work, it impacts me directly as well." So basically I'm pretty behind this mission, and I will believe in what I'm working on, which obviously I milked the hell out of it in the interview, but it was genuine. It was true. I really was like, if there's any product I really actually want to work on, it's a product that I'm going to be using every single day to keep me alive. So I'm going to be pretty invested in this. And turns out Dexcom actually has a ton of type 1 diabetics at the company because there's so many people that believe in the mission or that are personally impacted, whether it's like someone whose daughter, family member has type 1 diabetes. They actually really like that because obviously people are super bought into the mission. And I milked the hell out of the fact that I had diabetes in the interview. And I remember I got an on-site interview, and that was when I was showing them the teardowns of all these devices. I was like, "Oh, look at this device! Like I took it apart. Like I used a heat gun to separate the epoxy from these transmitters to pull it apart with like screwdrivers and just be like, oh yeah, I found the PCB board. I can see like this is where the battery goes in. Here are some chips. Here's probably where the Bluetooth is. And I guess they really liked that because I did that on the on-site interview. But I remember I had a case study. I had a case study and I was like, okay, they asked me how to do like a root cause analysis of a mechanical failure of a device. This was actually like a real world problem, but basically they were having in-field failures, and they wanted me to help break down the problem of like why might this inserter, this like G6 inserter, be stalling inside of people during deployment. And I'm like, that's really interesting. They're like, well, you took it apart. You must know how it worked. I'm like, shit. So I did the best I could of that. I also had another case study where they asked me, they're like, why would this signal not work when you like snap it into the transmitter? When you snap the transmitter in, they're like, how could there be water in here? How can you have water get in between like the two electrodes? And I remember coming out of that interview, I'm just like, yeah, I bombed this. I did not get the job. So I was like coming out of the building in San Diego, just going, I'm cooked. I didn't get this, man. Whatever. I'm done. Got to find a new job again. Maybe I'm just going to stay in Cincinnati the rest of my life. And then 3 weeks later, they call me back and they're like, hey, we'd like to extend an offer to you. I was like, really? And that's how I ended up there. I had no intention of working in the diabetes space, but it's funny how someone getting diagnosed with diabetes close to me at the time also was the impetus for me trying on a Dexcom, which was the impetus for me wanting to apply to the company because I was looking for a job. That impetus working at Dexcom, I remember I was pacing in my room. I was on the phone with one of my good buddies who just moved to San Diego. I didn't know a single person in San Diego. Everyone was like, San Diego's so beautiful. You're going to love it there. And I go, will I? Cool. Because I've never been there before. It was before I went out for an interview, or I think I just went out for an interview and I only was there for like 12 hours and I left. Wow. San Diego's fucking beautiful. I had no idea. It was really hard to leave there. Yeah. Getting laid off from my first job and someone close to me getting diagnosed with type 1 diabetes was the impetus for getting on a continuous glucose monitor, for then applying to Dexcom. And then on that phone call with my buddy, I go, look, like I'm going to be in sustaining engineering. I don't know how sexy or attractive that is, but I just think this is where the future of like health tech is going, like wearables and like sensors. And this was in 2018, 2019 when I was deciding if I wanted to actually take the job. I was like, I don't know if I'm in on it, but I think this is where the industry is going. And that decision being like, I think this is where the industry is going. Someone close to me getting diabetes, getting laid off from my first job is how I stumbled into the opportunity to be at Dexcom. So you never know what negative opportunities at the time that seem like a negative actually turn into a massive positive. Those compounding events happening at the same time legitimately changed the course of my life forever. I got to work at Dexcom as an engineer for 2.5 years and learn how these bad boys work inside and out, top to bottom. G6, Dexcom G6, see the company explode from when we're like, I think this works, to holy shit, this thing's working, to let's make the next gen one. I got to work on the next gen one. And then I go and I start to see the more I'm in like the health tech space, the more I'm in San Diego and in health and wellness, that everyone, not just people with type 1 diabetes, are using continuous glucose monitors to improve their health. And I go, this never would have happened if I didn't just say, you know what, let's just give it a go. Let me just apply. Or one small event just got me to apply to Dexcom. And it's funny how I just stumbled into it. I fell into it. But once I had the opportunity, I was like, I just got to take it. I got to see what's going on here and what the opportunity could take me with, and change the course of my life. And it's pretty awesome to just think back. And that's how I got the job at Dexcom.